Hello, today we're going to be talking about the Akai S20 desktop phrase sampler. It is from 96 or 97, I believe. It has a lot of the same functionality as the early S series Akai rack gear. This thing is cool because it samples at 16-bit, but it also has variable sample rate that you can choose on the way in when you're sampling into it. So I believe it's 32K, 16 kilohertz, and 8 kilohertz, and then you can resample down all the way to 4K, which is really cool. It also works on floppy disks, and there are ways that you can retrofit like a GoTech USB jam into there or whatever, but I like the floppy disks because it forces you to really confine and streamline your workflow to be able to save stuff on a disk, which is it is 1.4 megabyte of memory, which is absolutely nothing in this day of age. Also, when I turned it on, you can see it reads how much memory is installed. So this is maxed out with 16 megabyte. So it will hold a lot in the machine, and that kind of makes it kind of cool. While the machine is on, you can have up to 16 megabit, but it won't save anything when you turn it off. So that's what the floppies are for. So pretty much, I'm gonna scroll through and find something to make an example of. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop this bad boy in, and to load it you go to edit and you follow this little matrix here to see what it is that you want to do. So right now I'm gonna go to load disk, and then the record button is like a yes button. So I hit yes or record, and it's asking me, do I want to do all, or I can hit a button and only upload certain samples from the disk, but I'm gonna do all of them to see what's on here. So hit record, it gives you like, are you sure? Yeah. And you can hear that clicking. It's a classic floppy disk sound. So this is the cool part about this era of workflow. This was like story time, hanging out, running across, trying to get a coffee real quick. Takes forever to load. Luckily this is only a disk and it does it relatively quickly, but so pretty much my samples are loaded. So that's it. You have 16 banks. So the banks are literally one sample per bank. So it might as well just be 16 samples that this thing holds. So you can do stuff where you're only selecting a little part of whatever is on a certain pad, and you have kind of stuff laying in the background. But again, it's not going to fit on a disk that way. So literally I have like usually mono, usually like 16K or under type of loops. So that's how you load a disk. Once you have sounds loaded up, there's a lot of cool functionality that you can do. So this machine is really strong for pitching, especially down, and resampling at a lower sample rate, because it really has that, like, it doesn't even seem like there's any type of anti-aliasing filter on this machine at all. It gets like really raw and grimy really quickly when you start pitching stuff down. And usually, again, going back to the storage medium, I usually pitch stuff up before sampling in here, and then I pitch it way down. So A, I save sampling time, and B, I get to take advantage of all the grungy, cool aliasing that starts to happen. So as an example of the aliasing, let's take one of these loops, one of them that's kind of relatively clean. These are all dirty. Let's take that one. Okay, so if I go to edit and I go down to transpose, okay, this is going to give you where it was at originally. So that's how I sampled it. that's how I sampled it originally, and that does sound kind of sped up and hyped up on the way in, so that I could keep the length down. So I'm gonna let that play, and I'm gonna pitch it down so you can start to hear the crunch. So that's pretty cool. There's a lot of bass in there, so the bass kind of stays kind of how it is. It's really the top end stuff that really is affected. So that's pretty radical. So other things that you can do, you can chop stuff up, and you can put like one shots on different pads if you wanted. This is like a loop disc, I guess. So I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to cue up and show you how to sample in and chop stuff up. So BRB. Okay, so I just hooked up a cassette player to the S20 so that we can run some samples in here. So this is how you would sample into the machine. You're gonna hit record, and then you can select your sample rate with the plus or minus. So when you start, it's on 32K, and the S means stereo. So again, I'm hyped on mono with this machine, so I'm gonna go ahead and take the S away so that it's in mono. And if I go to play my cassette deck,
are your ears working today? Let's see.
Okay, so I can pretty much cue up what I want to sample. So let's just play through.
Now I'm going.
Fast forward a little bit. So I'm gonna go back to that, but I'm also gonna speed that up on the pitch. So just press a button when you want to sample. Okay, so I caught that. So here's what you could do. First thing I'll do is I'll make an example of how to copy stuff so you can keep the original. That's what I like to do, and then I'll show you resampling and showing how the sample rate reduction sounds super cool on this. So let's check it out. First thing, I want to go to edit, and I want to go into, I think it's in the discard menu. Yeah, so if you hit record, you press a pad, and then hit record again, hit another pad, should copy it. Cool. So you can also do stuff like this. You can go into the loop or one shot mode. So if I go on shot, that means I can hit it and let my hand off of it, and it plays the whole loop. Or I can go to hold, which will just constantly repeat and repeat. So after we cut this and pitch it and stuff, the hold will sound a lot better because it'll just continue to loop. So yeah, the first thing I want to show you is resampling, and then the second thing we'll start cutting the front and the end, maybe make some one shots. So to resample, let's go to resample. I'm just going to these two, like wherever these two green dots point. I'm on resample now. So it tells you where you were at, and then you can hit record, and it should drop that to the next available sample rate. So it asks you want to go to 16? Yeah, let's do it. Still sounds pretty heavy. Here's the original. Hear a little bit of crust on there. Let me go back to the loop and one shot mode and just turn that back to off. Okay, and let's go resample it down another notch and see how that sounds. So I'm at 16 now. If I hit record, it's gonna go down to 8. Yeah, let's do it. 8. Okay, so let me go ahead and start turning up some volume on these samples, because as that top end comes out, it just starts getting duller and duller and weirder. So that's the 8-bit. That's the 32-bit. 32 kilohertz and 8 kilohertz. Okay, so now the main differences other than this is when it starts pitching it down now, it's going to have less information to work with. So it's going to sound dramatically different. So let's go to transpose, and I'll take my original down a couple semitones. And versus this one. Okay, so you get the idea. Let's go down another notch and resample this one more time. So let's go to 4K. This is going to be dirty now. Okay, so since we completely obliterated that one, I'm going to go ahead and erase it. That was just for example purposes only. Okay, and I'm going to get out of the resample menu before I start to do anything else with this thing. So now let's make a loop out of this for an example of how the editing looks. So start fine and length fine are what you're going to do to truncate the ends, beginning and ends of the sample. So let's go to start fine, and you just want to look for that downbeat. So you use the plus and minus to kind of page through, but if you use coarse plus and minus, it takes it by like 100, I don't know, bits. I don't know if it's like, I don't know how it actually works, but like 100 times one press is what you get with coarse. So I'm gonna look for that downbeat. Okay, so I cut out that little ghostly snare thing in the beginning, and now we're gonna find an endpoint that we like. So if I go to length, fine, and now I'm just gonna come back off that end. I was actually way back there. I'm gonna get one little bar. Almost there. So the tedious fun of editing like this. Okay, so we're close. I'm gonna make sure I can hear that kick. Oh, all right, so there's the beginning of it. I think that's gonna work. So what I'll do is I'll go to discard, and I'll actually just take off all that other stuff, because I know if anything I'm a little too long right now. So if you hit record and press this, I have a habit of just pressing it a bunch. I don't know why. As long as the numbers or letters are still blinking, I press it. Oh, look at the C now. Okay, so it should be truncated. So if I go to loop and I go to, where am I at? Hold. This should be a loop. Yeah. Cool. So now I'm going to go over to transpose and feel a groove on it. That's cool. Okay, so right there you could set up some other samples to go along with it, kick yourself a little groove or whatever. Yeah, or you could chop it up into one shots the same way as we chopped that loop. You could chop it up into one shots. I'm gonna sample one more thing and show you that this thing does have a little mono trigger button, which only lets one sample play at a time, which is kind of useful. So I'll chop up like two. I'll chop up two instrument parts and then have them kind of alternate as this drum plays. Let me see. So let's go back to record. I'm gonna kick it down to 16K to start with. So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit until we figure out what we want to sample. Let's get something with some type of bass in it because it sounds a little better. I just have some random tape in here. Let's see. Okay. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put these into mono trigger mode. So edit and then mono trigger. And what that means is I'm only going to be able to hit one. So it's kind of like the early version of a choke group. So if I go to one shot, right there, they play over each other, and that's messy. So they're both on one shot. And now we're going to go to mono trigger and turn that both on. Both on. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and pitch it down a little bit to just make it sound different. Okay, so it kind of works. I'm going to take this thing, I'm going to make the volume louder. And turn that all the way up. And I'm going to slow it down a notch. Okay, and now these, I'm going to leave a little lower. And they're still a little fast for the drum beat, but you get what it is now. So this isn't part of the choke group. These are, and you have yourself something to work with. So that's an intro to this bad boy. Lastly, if you wanted to save, I guess I'll finish it with saving. You could take a fresh disc and you can pop it in here. And then you can go over to format. So it's formatted for this machine. So let's go do that. So I'm at format. It's going to check it out, what's going on. The front's blinking. It's actually quite nice to see. So it says unformatted. So I'm going to say, yeah, it's a 2HD. Are you sure? Go. So it's going to make this noise that it does with floppies. And then we're going to get to save all 3 samples. So tick, 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 tick. If I wasn't doing the video, I'd go for a jog or a hike. Okay, so it just turned off. That means it's formatted. So let's go up to save now and hit record, and it asks you save all. It shows you what's in there. Say yeah. So go. So let's see it save. It'll blink and go down the line and save it all. So that was an easy task. Usually if I'm lucky and I really truncate everything and everything's in mono or 16K or under, I could usually do like 8 loops and a couple of shots. And then yeah, sometimes I'll break a song up or something that I'm trying to do into like two floppies and save it that way. But in any case, you could always track stuff out into like Pro Tools or whatever and not use the disc, but it's kind of fun to work that way on here. So kind of cool. See ya.